Today, we're sharing an unbelievable true story from Korea that will make your blood boil. Have you ever gone through a divorce and put all your trust in a lawyer? Imagine pouring out your deepest secrets, your pain, your vulnerabilities to someone you believed was on your side, only to discover that this person was your wife's lover all along? The man in today's story says his entire world collapsed the moment he learned the truth about his divorce lawyer. Let me walk you through what happened to him, step by step. We'll call this man Jung-ho. He was 41 years old, an ordinary office worker. He and his wife Subin had dated for 3 years before getting married, and they'd been husband and wife for 8 years. They didn't have children, but Jung-ho believed he was happy enough. They'd have dinner together after work, catch a movie on weekends now and then. Nothing extraordinary, but it was a quiet, comfortable life. Then one day, his wife started acting differently. Subin suddenly began going out more and more often. College reunions, yoga classes, there was always an excuse. At first, Jung-ho didn't think much of it, but then he started noticing things. Every time she went out, her makeup was heavier than usual. She started wearing a perfume she'd never used before. When Jung-ho asked where she was going, Subin would snap at him. "Do you have to ask me every single time? Why are you so controlling?" That's when a cold feeling began to settle in Jung-ho's chest. And then, something happened. One night, while Subin was in the shower, her phone buzzed. Jung-ho glanced at the screen without thinking. There was a message from an unsaved number. It read, "Today was so wonderful. Let's meet again next week." Jung-ho felt like his heart stopped. His hands were trembling so badly he could barely hold the phone. But he didn't say a word, not right then. He put the phone back down and said nothing. For days afterward, Jung-ho couldn't sleep. "Maybe I read it wrong. Maybe it's a misunderstanding." He tried to reassure himself, but it was no use. Finally, he made a painful decision and checked his wife's phone again. In the deleted messages folder, he found dozens of conversations with that same number. "Sweetheart, I miss you. Let's meet tonight." That night, Jung-ho sat on the living room floor and cried without making a sound. Have you ever experienced something like this? That gut-wrenching feeling when someone you trusted completely stabs you in the back, when your whole world comes crashing down in an instant. Jung-ho made up his mind. He was going to file for divorce. He couldn't stay in this marriage any longer. So he quietly asked a colleague at work if he knew a good divorce lawyer. His colleague said, "I know just the right person. He's sharp, experienced, and specializes in exactly this kind of case." The lawyer his colleague recommended, we'll call him Min Jun. From the very first consultation, Min Jun seemed incredibly trustworthy. He spoke calmly and listened to every word Jung-ho had to say. "Jung-ho, you must be in so much pain. I'll do everything in my power to help you." Jung-ho thought to himself, "This is someone who's truly on my side." So he opened up completely. His wife's affair, their financial situation, every private detail of his life. But what Jung-ho didn't know at that moment was who this lawyer really was. Preparations for the divorce case began. Min Jun advised Jung-ho, "If you want to claim damages for the affair, you'll need solid proof of your wife's infidelity. Gather photos, recordings, text messages, anything you can find." Jung-ho did exactly as his lawyer instructed and started collecting evidence. But here's where things got strange. Every time Jung-ho gathered evidence, his wife Subin would erase the trail one step ahead of him, as if someone was feeding her information in advance. Jung-ho was puzzled. He hadn't even mentioned the word divorce to his wife. So how did she know to cover her tracks so quickly? It seemed odd, but he brushed it off. Surely it was just a coincidence. Then one evening, Jung-ho had a dinner appointment with his lawyer, Min-jin. They were supposed to discuss how the case was progressing. Jung-ho arrived early at the restaurant and was pulling into the parking lot when a familiar car caught his eye. It was Subin's car, his wife's car. Why on earth would her car be here? Jung-ho's heart began to pound. With a growing sense of dread, he quietly walked into the restaurant. And there, at a corner table, Jung-ho couldn't believe his eyes. Subin and Min-jin were sitting side by side. They were smiling warmly at each other, and Min-jin was holding Subin's hand tightly. Jung-ho froze on the spot. His wife and his lawyer sitting together like a couple. Can you imagine how he felt in that moment? Betrayed by his wife wasn't enough. Now the very lawyer he'd trusted with his life turned out to be her lover. They were together all along. Jung-ho walked out of that restaurant without looking back. He sat in his car for what felt like hours, completely numb. What hit him first wasn't anger. It was the sheer emptiness. He'd spent sleepless nights confiding in this man. He'd handed over every weakness, every vulnerability, and that man was the enemy all along. But Jung-ho was not the kind of man to sit still and take it. From that day on, he began to move quietly. First, he checked the phone number registered under Min-jun's name. Then he compared it to the unsaved number he'd seen on his wife's phone. It was the same number. Jung-ho found a new lawyer, one he researched and vetted entirely on his own this time. And he told this new lawyer everything. The man my wife is having an affair with is my divorce lawyer. I want to take legal action against both of them. Now, this is where the real story begins. When Jung-ho's new lawyers started digging, an even more shocking truth came to light. Min-jun had been Subin's pick from the very start. Jung-ho thought his colleague had recommended the lawyer, but it was Subin who had first suggested Min-jun to that colleague. Subin had already sensed that Jung-ho was preparing for a divorce, and she'd planted her own lover as his attorney. She'd been receiving real-time updates on the entire case, destroying any evidence that could hurt her before Jung-ho could even use it. The day of the trial arrived, but Min-jun wasn't sitting at the lawyer's table. He was sitting in the defendant's chair. Jung-ho had gathered everything: phone records, dashcam footage from the restaurant parking lot, hotel check-in records for the two of them. The evidence was airtight. Min-jin kept his head down, unable to say a word. Subin broke down crying in the courtroom, screaming, "What did I even do wrong?" But the evidence laid out before the judge didn't lie. Jung-ho spoke calmly. "The person I believed was on my side destroyed my life. That's what hurts the most." The court ruled in Jung-ho's favor. Jung-ho was awarded damages, and Min-jun was referred for disciplinary proceedings as a lawyer. The divorce was finalized, and Jung-ho quietly began a new chapter in his life. Later, Jung-ho said something that stayed with me. "Trusting the wrong person was the deepest wound I've ever had. But I'm proud of myself for never giving up. Sometimes in life, the only person truly on your side is yourself. Even when the world treats you unfairly, don't give up." If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and like for more true stories from Korea.